රෙස්ටෝරන්ට් රසට බිරියානි දැන් ස්ටෙප්ස් 3කින්.
හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Tuesday the 7th of February 2023. Crisis. The death toll of the devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria claim over 5,000 lives. A contingent of 300 Sri Lankan rescue personnel stand by to assist Turkey. One step closer. Paris Club member nations provide IMF with debt assurances much needed by Sri Lanka. Green economy. Former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says Sri Lanka can reduce its debt levels via debt to climate or debt to nature swap.
GGGI is ready to use its experience to help structure a debt for nature and or a debt for climate swap.
While plans have been set to ensure green economy by 2050, says President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Ensure a green economy and a better world by 2050.
Legislature. Fourth session of the 9th Parliament to ceremoniously commence tomorrow. While President is set to deliver government's policy statement, opposition factions to boycott the inaugural session.
උසස් පෙළට පසු කොලිෆයි වෙමු ඉහළට යමු ජය අරගමු ප්‍රොමෝෂන් එකට ඊළඟ දාගත්තොත් ඩිග්‍රිය ගොඩ
ජාතික කබලිකලමනා කරන ආයතනය NIPM වෙතින් රාජ්‍ය වගකීම සහ ලෝපිළිගත් උපාධියක් තරුණ ඔබට be smart, be qualified, be recognized with NIPM ජාතිය වැවිලි සරසවිය.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. Now, the International Monetary Fund has provided with debt assurances of the Paris Club of Nations as required by Sri Lankan creditors to proceed with the IMF's EFF facility. The Paris Club expressed their commitment to negotiate debt restructuring with Sri Lanka in line with the comparability of treatment principle and with the goal of restoring debt sustainability. The Paris Club of Creditor Nations have provided required financing assurances to support the International Monetary Fund's approval for the extended fund facility for Sri Lanka. Similarly, the ad hoc group of Sri Lankan bondholders provided the International Monetary Fund with a letter expressing their readiness to engage with Sri Lankan officials to come to an agreement last week. Earlier, foreign media quoted an anonymous source who stated that the group of bilateral lenders was set to soon announce its support towards the crisis-hit island. The PMD reported that the Paris Club members expressed their commitment to negotiate debt restructuring with Sri Lanka in accordance with the comparability of treatment principle and with the goal of restoring debt sustainability. It said that Saudi Arabia and India also expressed their support and commitment to providing financing assurances. The PMD went on to say that the Paris Club members urged other official bilateral creditors, including China, to do the same in line with the IMF program parameters. The assurances are crucial to finalize the $2.9 billion bailout package from the IMF. Now, former UN Secretary General and President of the Global Green Growth Institute, Ban Ki-moon, says Sri Lanka can reduce its debt levels via debt to climate or debt to nature swap. Addressing an event on strategies and actions to accelerate Sri Lanka's transition to a green growth pathway yesterday, Ban Ki-moon said the Global Green Institute is ready to help Sri Lanka in arranging a debt to climate or debt to nature swap. Meanwhile, President Ranil Wickremesinghe said the Sri Lankan government has prepared a natural adaptation plan and national environment action plan to ensure a green economy and a better world by 2050. An event themed strategies and actions to accelerate Sri Lanka's transition to a green growth pathway organised by the Ministry of Environment and the Global Green Institute was held in Colombo last evening under the patronage of former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who arrived in Sri Lanka for a 2-day visit yesterday, and President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Sri Lanka is in the process to decrease carbon emissions by 14.5% by 2030 and more thereafter. We are creating the Climate Change Office, operating under the President's Secretariat to coordinate all action in regard to climate change. Then we have prepared a Natural Adaptation Plan, the National Environment Action Plan. All of this is being taken as an initiative by our government so that we ensure a green economy and a better world by 2050. We are developing the Net Zero 2050 plan that aims for carbon neutrality. We will not increase further energy capacity via coal power. There are many initiatives that we will be taking for this period. Firstly, I'll bring a legislation for a new Climate Change Act, which will incorporate the Climate Change Office. New Environment Act to replace the old one, which was enacted in the early 1980s, and one which will cover reforestation, forest cover and tree cover, which is also essential. The last one is, I think, historic for our area, that we want to recognize some of our assets as living entities. So the Knuckles Range, the Horton Plains, the Peak Wilderness, the Singharaja, Mahavalley River and Adams Bridge would be recognized as living entities. We will be the first in the region to do so. And finally, the International Climate Change University. We want to start here as a postgraduate university and a university for training officials in all our regions, in the Indian Ocean, in the Africas, to prepare the world for meeting the climate change goals and a new green economy. But we are going to face difficulties. One is the lack of capacity, and we also need greater access to international financing. Then to use the green vision also, be able to financially engineer the debt, the reduction of Sri Lanka's debt by using the green financial instruments so that we could reduce the present debt load.
I understand the government's first priority is reaching an agreement with the International Monetary Fund. GGGI believes Sri Lanka should consider opportunities for further debt reduction with a debt for nature and for a debt for climate swap. If successfully arranged, such transactions can reduce sovereign debt, as well as bring much-needed resources to conservation and climate action. While this needs to be explored and developed, early assessments indicate that the potential can be as large as 300 to 500 million US dollars. In addition, once the IMF agreement is in place, the Sri Lankan banks can contribute to financing the green transition by issuing green bonds, an opportunity that can also generate hundreds of billions of dollars from the international capital market. GGGI is ready to use its experience to help structure a debt for nature and or a debt for climate swap, as it is currently doing in Ecuador. With Sri Lanka's special circumstances, this may be the one of the most important contributions from the GGGI. GGGI is already in discussions with the several private banks in Sri Lanka to support the process to issue green bonds as soon as the country's financial conditions allow.
Now, the two 7.8 and 7.5 magnitude tremors which shook Turkey and Syria yesterday has so far claimed over 5,000 lives. In the aftermath of the devastating earthquake, rescue workers are currently scouring through debris to save the survivors and recover the dead under harsh conditions. Speaking to AdaDerana English News, the Sri Lankan ambassador in Ankara confirmed today that all Sri Lankans in the affected region are safe, apart from one community member who has not been located so far. Meanwhile, on the instructions of President Ranil Wickremesinghe, a contingent of military personnel are ready to assist the Turkish rescue efforts upon the request of the Embassy of Turkey in Colombo. Furthermore, Sri Lankan ambassador designate to Beirut and accredited to Syria, Kapila Jayavira, has confirmed that there are no reports of Sri Lankans in affected areas in Syria.
The death toll from the two quakes stood over 5,000 according to international media by today evening. As reported by the Guardian news agency, the World Health Organization warned the number of casualties could exceed 20,000. As day broke, rescue teams stepped up their search for survivors. According to Turkey's disaster management agency, Turkey has deployed more than 24,000 search and rescue personnel to the quake area, and that number is expected to rise with the arrival of additional personnel, though winter conditions were hampering their deployment. Heavy machinery worked through the night in the city of Adana, with lights illuminating the collapsed buildings and huge slabs of concrete in scenes repeated across southern Turkey. Occasionally, the work stopped to rejoice when a survivor was found or to mourn when the dead were recovered. Adana is currently full of the homeless, those who lost their homes, and others too fear of aftershocks to return. Some left without shoes, coats or phone chargers, while temperatures are expected to drop below freezing later this week. Earlier during the day, Turkey's Disaster Management Authority said in a statement that nationally 8,000 people have been rescued and more than 4,700 buildings have been destroyed. Meanwhile, AdaDerana English News was in close contact with the Sri Lankan ambassador in Turkey as the tragic event transpired, inquiring particularly on the state of Sri Lankans in the affected region.
About the Sri Lankans, you said there are 9. Is that the total Sri Lankans based in Turkey, or are there many? Are you referring to the number that is in the affected areas?
We have about 270 Sri Lankans living in Turkey, mostly in Istanbul, and most of them are students. And there are few who are working as well. The numbers that I referred are the ones whom we have records of living in and around the most affected areas. So altogether it's 14 now. Who are living in and around the affected areas.
Speaking to AdaDerana English News today, the Sri Lankan ambassador in Turkey shared the latest on the impact of the crisis on Sri Lankans in the affected region, while also confirming that the embassy is actively providing support to all in need.
And if I may talk about the Sri Lankans, according to latest update, we've identified 16 people living in the 10 core areas where it was damaged by the earthquake, as well as surrounding areas. Some of these people have moved from other areas to this area. In the WhatsApp group that we have with the embassy, we came to know these things and we updated our information. So out of 16, 14 are students, mostly university students. Then there are 2 community members, and it is only one community member whom we can't locate. It's a lady who was living in one of the affected areas in Adana province. We will do our best to find her whereabouts, and we are also in touch with her daughter who is living in Istanbul. Our WhatsApp group is quite helpful in reaching out to people. We keep on contacting them whenever possible because time to time mobile services doesn't work. So similar system we operate with Georgia and Ukraine, which this embassy is also accredited to. Especially in an emergency, these networks are very useful.
Further, the Embassy of Sri Lanka in Ankara has set up 2 emergency telephone numbers to inquire about or provide information on the Sri Lankans living in Turkey. Accordingly, inquiries can be made via 00903124271032 or 00905344569498. Meanwhile, President Ranil Wickremesinghe today expressed shock and sadness regarding the loss of life, injuries and devastation caused by a series of earthquakes in Turkey. The head of state has extended heartfelt condolences on behalf of the people of Sri Lanka to the government and the people of Turkey, especially the families of the affected, wishing them a speedy recovery. President Wickremesinghe reiterated Sri Lanka's stance in solidarity with the people. Accordingly, Sri Lanka Army says preparations have been made to send a contingent of 300 military personnel to assist the search and rescue operations in quake-hit Turkey. A spokesman of the military noted that this military contingent stands to be dispatched to Turkey upon the request of the Embassy of Turkey in Colombo. Responding to the immediate reaction of Sri Lanka, the Turkish ambassador in Colombo expressed her gratitude.
We appreciate and are grateful for the immediate reaction of Sri Lankan authorities. Soon after Turkey launched an international assistance call yesterday, Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri called me to inform regarding the instructions of His Excellency Ranil Wickremesinghe, and that a rescue and research team of 300 people is on standby, ready to join the operations within 24 hours. I conveyed immediately the proposal to our headquarters. I'm sincerely grateful to His Excellency President Ranil Wickremesinghe for his instructions. We are working in close cooperation with Sri Lankan authorities here in Colombo. Similarly, Sri Lankan Embassy in Ankara is also in close contact with our authorities in Turkey. All necessary assistance is provided to foreign missions in Turkey to help them trace the whereabouts of their nationals, and research and rescue teams are working tirelessly to save every single life.
At the moment, many countries around the world have expressed support to crisis-hit Turkey and Syria by offering them much-needed aid in rescue operations. The European Union said it mobilized rescue teams with crews from countries including Bulgaria, Croatia, the Czech Republic, France, Greece, Hungary, Malta, the Netherlands, Poland and Romania dispatched to the region. At least 13 member countries have offered assistance. Furthermore, US President Joe Biden said in a statement that US teams are deploying quickly to begin to support Turkish search and rescue operations and address the needs of those injured and displaced by the earthquake.
The fourth session of the 9th Parliament of Sri Lanka will ceremoniously commence tomorrow under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Tomorrow, the President will be delivering the policy statement of the government, and following its conclusion, the House will be adjourned until 9:30 am on the 9th of February. The ceremonial opening of the fourth sitting of the 9th Parliament of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka will be held tomorrow under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. According to Sergeant-at-Arms of Parliament Narendra Fernando, the President has instructed to make the necessary arrangements to hold the ceremonial opening of the fourth session as a formal ceremony, however excluding gun salutes and motorcades. The rehearsals, meanwhile, for the ceremonial opening was held today at the parliamentary premises. Upon commencement of the new parliamentary sitting tomorrow, President Wickremesinghe will present the policy statement of the government, which will be his second as the President. Following the policy statement, the House will be adjourned until 9:30 am on the 9th of February. Now, the main opposition, the Samagi Jana Balawege, has decided to boycott the new parliamentary session that will commence tomorrow. Meanwhile, parliamentarians of the Freedom People's Alliance have also decided to express their objection to the policy statement of the President and leave the parliament premises.
තවත් උත්සවයකට ජනාධිපතිවරයා රාජ්‍ය මුදල් ජාතික මුදල් වැය කිරීමක් පමණයි මේ නැවත පාර්ලිමේන්තු සැසිවාරයේ කල්දමලා කරලා තිබෙන්නේ. වෙන මුකුත් නැහැ. ඒ නිසාම මේ සැසිවාරය නැවත විවෘත කරන අවස්ථාවේදී සමගි ජන බලවේගය මේ සැසිවාරයේ අවස්ථාවට සහභාගී වෙන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නැති බව මම ඉතාමත් පැහැදිලිව සඳහන් කරන්න කැමතියි.
හෙට පාර්ලිමේන්තු සභාගමට ගොස් ජනාධිපති රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ රාජාසන කතාව සිදු කිරීමට පැමිණෙන අවස්ථාවේදී ඊට විරෝධය පළ කළ සභාගමෙන් එළියට එීමට අපේ නිදහස් ජනතා සන්ධානයේ සියලුම മന്ത്രിවරුන් තීරණය කළා.
මේ මැතිවරණයක් පැවැත්වෙන අවස්ථාවේ මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව කල් දාලා තියෙනවා. මෙහෙම ජනාධිපතිවරයෙකුට හිතන වෙලාවට ප්‍රකාශ කරන්නයි මේ විදිහට පාර්ලිමේන්තුව පාවිච්චි කරන පාර්ලිමේන්තුව සීල් එකක් නෙමෙයි ජනාධිපතිගේ. ඒ නිසා මේ විදිහට පාර්ලිමේන්තු മന്ത്രിවරුන් හැල්ලු කරන එකට අපි සම්පූර්ණයෙන් විරුද්ධයි.
මේ 8 වෙනිදා ජනාධිපතිතුමා පාර්ලිමේන්තුව ඇමතීමේදී යෝජනාවක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් කතා කරනවා. අඩුම තරමේ එවැනි තනක ඡන්දයක් විමසීමටවත් අපේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු ක්‍රමවේදය තුල අද ඉඩක් නැහැ. ඊළඟට ඒ යෝජනාව සම්බන්ධයෙන් විවාදයක් පවත්වනවා. ඒ විවාදය තුල අදහස් ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ හින්දා සිදු නොවන දේවල් උපකල්පනය කරලා දේශපාලනික වාසියක් ගන්න ප්‍රකාශ කිරීම තුල සිදු වෙන්නේ ජනතාව අපහැදිලි තාත්වයක් ඇති වෙන්නේ.
Now, among a host of decisions taken at yesterday's cabinet meeting was the decision to appoint 10 committees comprising of 19 officials to carry out a systematic review regarding 10 ministries that have the highest allocation of funds given through the budget. This is being implemented with the objective of introducing a zero-based budgeting in order to rationalize state expenditure. The Cabinet approved the proposal presented by President Ranil Wickremesinghe to consider recommendations in the report of the committee to review project officers and project management units. Accordingly, the committee that was appointed to review whether certain project officers and project management units have achieved their tasks has recommended to close down 55 existing project management units, to suspend the activities of 32 others, and to run 46 project management units with minimum staff. Meanwhile, a cultural cooperation agreement has been proposed to be signed between Sri Lanka and the Maldives. The draft agreement has received the clearance of the Attorney General and the approval of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. As such, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal presented by the Minister of Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs to sign the relevant agreement. The Cabinet further gave the green light to have the legal draftsman prepare a bill to amend the Employees Trust Provident Act, number 46 of 1980, in order to enable the implementation of a health insurance similar to the Agrahara health insurance given to private sector employees. In the meantime, the Cabinet approved the resolution submitted by the President in his capacity as the Minister of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policies to prepare a draft bill to supervise the statutory funds systematically maintained by ministries, departments and other state institutions, and to implement a program with the objective of managing these funds of these institutions. Approval meanwhile was also given to a resolution proposed to appoint 10 committees comprised of officers chaired by either Deputy Treasury Secretary or a senior officer of the Treasury in order to conduct a systematic review on 10 ministries to which a large portion of allocations are made from the annual budget estimations. The ministries subject to this review are the Ministries of Transport and Highways, Public Administration, Home Affairs, Provincial Councils and Local Government, Education, Health, Agriculture, Plantation Industries, Defence, Public Security, Irrigation and Urban Development and Housing. Now, the all share price index closed in red at 8,975.86, down at 1.37% as a result of price losses in counters such as Sampath Bank, Valuable One and Expo Lanka Holdings, with a turnover crossing 2.2 billion rupees. A similar behavior was witnessed in the S&P SL 20, which stood at 1.81% lower at 2,785.19. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in Lanka Tiles, John Keel's Holdings and Hatton National Bank. Mixed interest meanwhile was observed in Expo Lanka Holdings, Aitken Spence and SoftLogic Life Insurance, whilst retail interest was noted in SoftLogic Capital, Brown's Investment and Expac Corrugated Cartons. Furthermore, foreigners remained active, closing as net buyers. Capital goods sector was a top contributor to the market turnover as the sector index lost 0.54%. Material sector was the second highest contributor to the market turnover, while the sector index decreased by 0.31%. Now let's take a look at how the rupee fared against other major currencies in the world. Now, oil prices rose for a second straight session today, driven by optimism about recovering demand in China and concerns over supply shortages following the shutdown of a major export terminal after an earthquake in Turkey. Further, analysts say that the market will keenly observe Fed Chair Jerome Powell's speech tomorrow in an attempt to predict the trajectory of interest rates. Brent crude futures were up 2.15% to $82.73 a barrel, while the West Texas Intermediate U.S. crude futures rose 2.29% to $75.81 per barrel. Rationalizing the rise of prices, experts said crude prices are up on expectation that China's recovery will take hold upon a supply outages from the earthquake that devastated Turkey. The International Energy Agency expects half of this year's global oil demand growth to come from China. Saudi Arabia, the world's top oil exporter, raised prices for its flagship crude for Asian buyers for the first time in 6 months, amid expectations of demand recovery, especially from China. Operations at Turkey's 1 million barrel per day oil export terminal in Ceyhan were halted after a major earthquake hit the region. The BTC terminal, which exports Azeri crude oil to international markets, will be closed till the 8th of February. The oil markets will also watch US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's speech tomorrow. Interest rate hikes typically strengthen the dollar, which could make crude more expensive for non-US buyers. And that's all the news we have for you this evening. Join us again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time. Tune into our social media pages to stay updated on the latest news. Have a pleasant evening and good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.